What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Hour. Whoops, combined with Noah's show. Got a extra special episode today because this was the only day in 2 weeks that Noah was able to do his show, so we just figured we would combine it. Carlos is going to be joining us. His dog just chewed through his Ethernet cable. That's a real story. I don't know if he would accept that if one of his students told him that their dog ate their homework, but now I guess he has to.
I feel like we're obliged to show receipts. But that's on Carlos. I don't wanna dox his dog.
I think they're currently trying to jerry rig an Ethernet cable or something. I don't know. I have like a million Ethernet cables. I wish he was at my house, but
Yeah.
welcome to Nick, our comrade from RBN, who's in the chat. Says he's doing a show with DDG tomorrow. Definitely stay tuned for that. Check out the Revolutionary Blackout Network if you haven't yet. But yeah.
What's up, Nick? Dude, I have like a bunch of Ethernet cables. I have an issue right now of our new cat like just trying to chew any cable in my office. So like I have like my whole like PC I built down here, and he's just like constantly he comes in here and goes straight for it. So like I have to like be on constant guard and like put something in front of the door so he doesn't push it open and try to eat them while I'm streaming.
Oh yeah, sign of a bad owner. Shaking my head.
Anyway,
Noah, did you want to start with your opening monologue?
Do I? Oh, I was just gonna do. I would like. Are we just like for real combining the Power Hour and Noah's show?
I think so.
Like, dude, it's like a long rant about shit that bothers me.
I know.
Like,
I watched your show. Well, about what?
Yeah. Well, okay. So, all right. It's something that sort of like over the last 2 weeks, like, has been like extra grinding my gears. Right. It's like it's one of those things that you always see, but there's never really like a good explanation of why it happens. Right. And it always seems like nobody seems to care other than me. So I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, right? Or maybe people just don't know how to think anymore. I don't know. It's not like we get taught how to do that in school, right? Like how to think. Uh, not in the 21st century, anyway. We get taught to memorize things, right, and repeat them, like trained fucking dogs or something. Like, you want the treat? Like someone wants somebody to click a heart icon. Well, repeat some brainless dogma you've never bothered to think about that you were taught to repeat. Good boy. That kind of shit, right? Like, I don't know. It's pathetic.
So what was your rant on? Get to the point.
Well, this is what it is, right? Like, so I sort of blame our education system for the whole thing, right? There's a dialectical relationship going on in how we acquire knowledge, like actually acquire it, or really, like knowledge, because what we're acquiring instead of knowledge are dogmas. Like when you're scrolling X, right, and you see people posting all the dumb, wild stuff that they post on X, that new information that you get when you're scrolling, right? It's tested against your preconceptions. What you already think is true, and it verifies, or if it verifies a previously existing thing that you think is true, it gains authenticity for you, right? And you tend to believe it. At the same time, it reinforces that previously existing thing that you thought was true. That's an interrelationship, right? The unity of opposites between old and new, affecting each other, characterizing each other. Unfortunately, this way of thinking and acquiring knowledge is flawed as all fucking get out. So, there's that. I mean, it doesn't actually fucking work. Sorry, I'm swearing a lot. Either way, example. If you believe that all dogs were brown, right? And you saw a picture of a brown dog, you go, yep, that's a dog because I know that all dogs are brown. And at the same time, your preconception is verified because you just saw a picture of a brown dog. But what happens if you see a picture of a white dog or a dog with spots? I mean, if it's X, you reply to the post and tell whoever posted it, LOL, that's not a dog, you idiot. But look, it's a stupid example, but that's the flaw in how we're taught to think through memorization routines. And it's not even really what's been grinding my gears. I guess it's kind of like linked, though. since that's really the underlying issue with it. And that thing is the sort of reply guys on the internet, right? They're like the most annoying people ever. They're like the
Hey, now I reply guys some Zionist accounts and stuff, so reply guys can work for good or for evil.
that's a good point.
I'm
And
sort of one myself.
well, here's my issue with it though. Like it's not the act of replying that bothers me, right? It's sort of becoming like an urban vandal of social media, right? Like
No,
a
I get
kid
what
who
you
runs around spray painting on other people's shit and making my neighborhood look like garbage, right? And not like the good ones, right? That like people consider art or whatever, like the Andre the Giant Obey guy, right? Like more like the kids in middle school who come up and like draw a dick on a poster about breast cancer awareness, right? And everything they say is like just as stupid as like the tagger name or whatever you call it. You know what I'm talking about though, right? Like they're always like just dumb sounding words like Bobby Five or Wallaby or Mac or
Yeah,
whatever the
bro,
fuck.
it's just Andrew Saturn's alt accounts. Like what?
Exactly. That's
It's like
exactly what
two
I'm talking about.
guys.
It's just some dumb like the social media equivalent of nonsense graffiti, right? Just like making the entire neighborhood look like garbage. I don't know though. Like I don't really know why their names are all stupid. They are like even on the internet, turdism. What is this kind of thing, right? It's silly. I can't read the minds of 15-year-olds, so I'm not gonna try. But anyways, you could do like a huge, long, thought-provoking post that reveals some like real insight or even just a logical observation or whatever, and they just come along and go gay, retarded, gay. You know what I mean? And you're like, what are you even talking about? How is a post
Yeah,
about
that's just the internet,
financialization?
man. You just got to mute those people. You can't let
It's
those people grind your gears.
oh,
That's how the
dude.
internet works. Like, bro, if you want to feel better about it, go to some mixed martial artists Instagram pages and you'll see like professional athletes being shit on by neckbeards who have probably never seen the inside of a gym, telling them that they're pussies and cowards and stuff they'd never say to their face. Like that's the nature of the internet, but it is it is a new form of communication that maybe, wasn't necessarily like maybe I have skills to deal with this because I grew up playing League of Legends, like which was known for being one of the most toxic games on the internet. It really is a toxic game because the game, not to get into a League of Legends detour, but the games go for like 45 minutes to over an hour. And if one person leaves your team, it screws over the rest of the team. And it ruins the whole game. So it creates a really toxic environment where people are competitive and fight with their own teammates. But anyways, I got really used to just not feeding the trolls. Like that's really the best advice. If someone's just trolling, if they're not asking a question or making a critique in good faith, just don't feed them. And you got to be careful to, certain narratives pushed by trolls can develop and snowball. And so at a certain point, you do have to respond. But those people just like graffitiing your account, like don't let those dickheads get to you. But what you were saying earlier was very interesting about the what I would call the metaphysical mode of thought or learning or education or just way of thinking in general. And I think the German ideology has become a very famous Marxist text. It's one of the first ones I read. I like it a lot. I recommend it to people who are just starting to get into Marxist philosophy. But it was never intended to be published. It was like put together with Marx and Engels' early notes when they were figuring out their system of thought. But even still, I think it's become so popular because it explains exactly what Noah was just explaining, and you can see it all around you because we do live in a liberal society in an even higher developed stage than what Marx was living through. In a stage, when Marx was around, they still had classical political economy, which, actually rooted itself in the labor theory of value and rooted itself in a scientific materialist analysis of how the economy works. Nowadays, and I've written on this extensively, we have neoclassical economics, which is basically just postmodernism, right? Nothing is real. Everything's based on consumer choices. Line go up mean economy good. All these absolute dogmas, and economics has become a useless pseudoscience so long as you remain in the realm of neoclassical economics. So we've seen an even further development towards neoliberalism, postmodernism, and what Noah and I are calling metaphysical thinking. And that's why I think it grinds your gears so much, because we're surrounded with it, because children are inundated with it. They're not taught to think. They're taught to memorize. If they were taught to think, they would question, why do we keep our system structured in this way when it's so obviously not working for anybody, except those at the very top. And they don't want you to do that. So they basically are trying to make people sheep.
Yeah, oh, sorry. I thought you were done. My bad.
No, you're good. I was almost done. And I'll wrap it up here. I was going to go on a little detour, but I was just going to say it's made worse by the underfunding of the education system. So you got one teacher trying to take care of 30 kids who are rambunctious. Half of them have learning disabilities and behavioral issues. And it's just like, there's no learning going on there. It's just babysitting.
Yeah.
But it also, this is why I think it's important to see Marxism as a worldview, right? It's a way of thinking where you actually question everything, and you actually question, as Noah was saying, the preconceptions that you have that we so often never examine. So that, if we think that all dogs are brown, Marxism teaches us to question, well, do I know that? Have I, seen a wide sample of dogs? And if you see a dog that's white, well, then you have to change that previously held conclusion that you had that dogs were all brown. It calls for the ruthless critique of all that exists, is a famous phrase. And I just remember Douglas Lane, who's done a lot of good work. He's he's a nice guy, but he criticized Carlos once for talking about Marxism as a worldview, and he was saying Marxism isn't a worldview. And I just think that's so wrong. If a philosophical system isn't a worldview, if it doesn't change the way that you look at the world, then what the hell's the value in it? But yeah, that's all I had.
Yeah, Doug and I have gotten into it in the past.
I'm shocked.
I was calling him Dog Lane for a while.
I forgot about Dog Lane. That was good.
What's funny is he became one of those sort of like graffitiers on social media, because he was losing his relevance as a real sort of Marxist Leninist left began to reassert itself in America, right? Because guys like that own the sort of out there hiding in the academy sort of left
platypus, I would say. And they criticize the identity politics stuff,
yeah,
sometimes.
Well, exactly. And they were sort of the kings of the cage for a minute, and then we came in there swinging and they didn't know what to do about it. Right. So they just kind of reacted. But I want to go back to the German ideology, because I think it's an interesting look at Marxism itself and how that book got published. Because like Eddie was saying, it was from a collection of notes and essays that they'd planned on making a journal and just never did it. Right. And so they put the German ideology together out of that way after the fact. But the reason all of those essays and stuff had significance was because that was their beginning. That was how they began creating the Marxist worldview, right? So I always recommend, when people read the German ideology, don't read it without also reading Ludwig Feuerbach and the End of Classical German Philosophy, which is sort of Engels finishing up what's begun in the German ideology. And if you do that, you sort of get a deeper view on what Eddie and I are talking about this metaphysical way we're taught to acquire knowledge in schools. Look, it's sort of not talked about as much as it should be, but as a people, as humanity, since the sort of technological boom that the internet begun, we are getting dumber. We are not thinking as much. We are not thinking as critically. I remember Carlos and Eddie and I were talking about Zizek writing something about this, right? Where he was just commenting on this phenomenon. But I don't like, as strange as it is to say, I don't think Zizek goes deep enough. I don't think he sort of looks at the underlying issue that causes this dumbing down, because it's not just technology. That technology is attached to an entire interconnected world and culture, and based on this sort of financialized era of capitalism that all of it is within, right? And it all comes back to, again, like memorization rather than critical thinking as how we acquire knowledge. And if all we do is memorize, we're very easily manipulated. And frankly, like, it may sound a little tinfoil hat, but I think that's one of the reasons we're taught to think in this manner, because we are easily controlled in that way. We're more easily pushed down a path, and different niches can fill their purpose. Like, look at the very obviously astroturf neo-Nazism going on right now. All of that is based on accepting a few fundamental premises, right? And then they snowball from there. If you don't accept those premises, if you question them and think critically about them, it's impossible to get down the other side of the road. I don't know.
Definitely. Oh, sorry. I thought I was muted. I was trying to unmute myself.
I'm just going to start muting you just because.
No, you make some good points there, and I think it's important because we need to, and this is something you focused on a lot in your work, maybe even too much, and sometimes it distracts you from getting to actually applying the analysis.
Wait, me focusing on one thing too much? No.
No, but it is important to know how to approach thinking. I was gonna pull up a video, but it looks like we have a special guest in the house, so I'll wait.
Oh, who could it be?
I'll wait until they pull themselves on the screen here before I jump into it. Hey,
there he is.
What's
up? Can
up?
you hear me okay?
Yep. Sounds good.
What's up, brother?
Good to be here. I'm sorry I'm late. I had everything set up and ready to go, and then for some reason the camera that's connected to the computer wasn't connecting, and when I did some further investigation, I realized that it didn't have the same Wi-Fi network, and my Ethernet cable, when I go look at it, it had been completely chewed up by my Chihuahua. So
we want receipts.
Now I've come to think works for probably the CIA.
I haven't seen pictures of Carlos's Chihuahua. Can confirm.
Yeah. MK Ultra victim for sure.
I sent Eddie and Noah a picture just so that they knew I wasn't just running on Cuban time. But I was able to tie the cables back together and put some tape over it, and that's what I'm running on now. So awesome. If I disconnect at any point, the dog probably got back to chewing, but we'll hope that's not the case.
Hopefully. Well, we're glad to have you for this extra special episode. Not often we get the full crew together, so this should be fun. Got a couple super chats already. Thank you, Chima Madhu. All these super chats will be split between the three of us, and a portion of them will go towards furthering our work at the Midwestern March Institute, of course.
Why does Carlos have my avatar when he turns his camera off? What is happening there? Where did everyone go, by the way? Everyone's just gone. Suddenly it's just me. Apparently
I don't know what just happened. I think I hit a button on my mouse and went back.
I think Carlos already disconnected, but that was weird. Okay. Carlos, when you turn your camera off, it just shows a picture of me for some reason.
Yeah, I noticed that. I don't know why that.
I think you have to like edit your own avatar at the dashboard.
Yeah, that's all of our profiles right now. It shows 3 Noahs face palming in the side screen. But Chima, thank you for the $5. Breaking news: Blackwater was just selected to go to Haiti, so they're going with a private mercenary outfit. Interesting. That's par for the course in Haiti. It's a country with really no central government. It's just like mercenary groups with various connections to various countries, the US, of course, and then like NGOs essentially run the country. But brainless Haitian diasporans in the West are celebrating like it's some kind of victory. Yeah, isn't that crazy how these people who flee to the US cheer on US regime change against their home country? That's going to make the situation worse. I mean, I was in Miami recently, and that's maybe the heart of it in the US, but it's pretty disgusting.
I wonder
What's interesting
what,
is that there's I the thing about Haiti is that it was the first country that liberated itself in 1804. I think it's still paying back its debt to France, but in terms of its political economy and how it was affected by colonialism, it's extremely similar to Cuba, because Haiti was the sugar hub of the world right before Cuba became the sugar hub of the world. And part of why Cuba ended up becoming the sugar hub of the world was thanks to the 1804 Haitian Revolution. So, in terms of its political economy and the industries that colonialism imposed dependency on it, it's very similar to Cuba. But look at the drastically different outcomes that we've seen from capitalism in Haiti to socialism in Cuba. I know that Cuba is, of course, a country that is at the moment very poor. There's buildings crumbling and it's struggling because of the blockade, but its people have a more dignified existence. They have sovereignty, whereas the Haitians don't, because of imperialism and because the one successful revolutionary struggle that was able to come to power was overthrown by the CIA. So when I think about Haiti and Cuba, they're people that are so similar, even in terms of religion. They're very similar. The West African religions that you have in Haiti, you also have them in Cuba. I mean, I myself practiced some of them when I was younger. So such a similar people, but so drastically different outcomes in terms of how life is, how dignified their people are, etc., because of the different paths that their revolutions took. And because one won sovereignty and socialism for itself, and the other one has yet to win that.
Yeah, we should point this out while we're talking about the development of the Haitian economy. But this is a great documentary from our friend Kim Ives, who Danny Shaw tried to turn us against, but we didn't allow that to happen because Kim is brilliant, great journalist, incredible scholar of Haiti, incredible left-winger, no purity fetish at all. And his magazine, Haiti Liberté, not magazine, it's a paper, I believe. His paper, Haiti Liberté, was instrumental in the rise of Jean-Bertrand Aristide, the famed liberation theologist who the U.S. couped 2.5 times. But Kim produced this documentary back in the 70s, I believe, about the semi-colonial Haitian, semi-feudal Haitian economy and how the economy runs there, how these like sharecroppers or basically landlords control vast swaths of land that the Haitians work for, sometimes just subsistence, sometimes for food, and very, very, very little money. So like an extremely underdeveloped semi-feudal economy. And this movie is actually being remastered now, and it's going to be put out in even higher quality soon. So we'll be promoting that when it comes. Be sure to check it out. I learned so much about Haiti from this, more than I'd ever learned from Danny Shaw. So shout out to Kim.
Well, have you seen the newer documentary that he did with Dan Cohen?
Yes, sir.
The one, dude, it is so good. My wife, she likes documentaries. She's not necessarily as into, Marxism and all that stuff as I am. But she was like in tears watching this documentary with me. It's really, really good. I want to also comment, there was an anti-communist that we made the mistake of working with for a while because he lied to us. And the entire time, he was trying to sort of turn us against people like Kim and people like Dan, who, have been working in Haiti for years and years and really understand the situation. And someone in the chat asked, if he's celebrating this Blackwater sort of descendant going into Haiti, and I don't know how he couldn't be. This is his thing, like pretending that imperialism and the supporters of U.S. imperialism are somehow revolutionary.
Here's the
Right.
thing. He will say he's against Blackwater going in, but his lies about Jimmy Cherizier are the exact kind of propaganda that create the conditions where Blackwater can go in. So it's
Right.
this fake left bullshit. No, I'm against Blackwater, but I'm spreading propaganda and lies about the person that Blackwater is going in to take out.
It's
And I'm
Trotskyism.
That's
yes,
that's been the
It's
modus
neither Moscow
operandi.
nor
That's been the modus
Beijing.
operandi of Trotskyism and Western
Yeah.
Marxism forever. It's the neither Washington nor Moscow, or neither Washington nor Beijing, or in this case, neither Blackwater nor barbecue. It's an attempt at feigning neutrality at a moment where the world actually divides itself into two, and that's what contradiction analysis shows us. Certain phenomena and process and totalities contain within them contradictions, and those contradictions have two primary different poles, and you can try to not operate as if your condition is mediated by those poles, but you would just be frankly delusional. They're objectively what they are, and that slogan that Pete Seeger comes up with, which it wasn't him who wrote the words initially, but which side are you on? That's the eternal question that we have to ask ourselves, because there are, frankly, two sides. It might seem like indirectly there might be other ones, but no, there's fundamentally two sides. And in this question of Haiti, there was either the side of imperialism, which was denigrating the figure that was propping himself up as the anti-imperialist figure, barbecue, and there's the side of barbecue, Jimmy Cherizier. There's no third way, just like there's no third way today between the axis of resistance and China and BRICS, etc., and U.S., NATO, EU imperialism, as our comrade Chris Halali calls it. That's the split in the world, just like at one point it was a split between the Soviet Union and U.S. imperialism. And you can try to cope and say, no, I want a third path, but that's the way of Trotskyism. And as Howard Zinn teaches us, you can't be neutral on a moving train. When you try to be neutral on a moving train, you end up just indirectly accepting the principal aspect of that contradiction, which is imperialism.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I say this all the time. There's the worker and the enemy of the worker. In the 21st century, that is the only two things. You're either on the side of the people or you're not.
Yep. True. Well, we'll try to get through the rest of these super chats without taking as long as we did on that one. That was an interesting topic. But thank you, Battle Cossack, for the Argentinian money. You think America, USA is heading towards a year of lead sort of situation with everything that's been happening with the death of Brian Thompson and now the two Israeli diplomats being shot? Yeah, I mean, it's a sign of the times. It's adventurism. Obviously, we don't condone it. All it does is allow for the state to crack down, and allow us for Zionists to now portray all Palestine supporters as a bunch of terrorists who want to bring terrorism to America. And, Lenin taught us this a long time ago. People just need to read. But yeah, I could see more of that happening. I highly
Did you
recommend.
guys share your thoughts over the Israeli embassy shooting already?
Honestly, like I was planning on talking about that when we were going to do the Noah's show, but I think because
I don't know if you talked about it already and I came in late. I don't want to comment.
No, but I think it's
we-
worth like, even though this came as a super chat, at really discussing and going into this one, because it's massively important. At the onset of any genuinely revolutionary era, you get stuff like this. You get acts of what they used to call terrorism, right?
Yeah.
We saw it in Russia in the early 20th century. We saw it in the immediate aftermath of the civil rights revolution as people tried to push forward the gains of that revolution before the counter revolution takes over, right? We saw all kinds of violence in Germany before the fascist crackdown. I mean, on and on and on, right? We could go through each country. So what I think we should take away from this is not, like, oh, we should take this side or that side. It's that the era of struggle is advancing. and we need to be ready for escalating crises. We need to be ready for, like Eddie just said, the government to use things like this in order to crack down on the forces of progress, and the forces of the working class. And we need to be ready to take a principled stand. When they attack the PSL, even though the PSL have been lying about us and spitting on us forever, we stand with them because they're being attacked by the ruling class. In this situation, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? And it's not about PSL. It's never been about them. It's about us. It's about how people see the communists acting. That is what is important.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree, and it's interesting because I've seen people online when they discuss it. More younger leftists, they want to make it an issue of violence, and it's not necessarily an issue of violence. There's different forms of violence that exist, and of course, while we're completely against violence in this adventuristic form, we're not naive enough to understand that in revolutionary processes, the forces of progress aren't forced, to participate in violence just because that's what's coming their way from the forces of reaction, the counter-revolutionary forces. This isn't simply an issue of violence. This is an issue of a sort of single individual acting as a monadic, disconnected entity from any institution or collective body that he could be held accountable and responsible for, and doing something that had and will have, I think, negative ramifications for the movement. I mean, we're not idealists. It's not. I don't want to reduce this to a sort of petty moralism of this is bad or that is good. That's not what's at stake here. What's at stake is the fact that we are in a collective struggle against the Zionist entity, against U.S. imperialism, which prompts up the Zionist entity, which is the same entity that keeps us impoverished, indebted, and desperate here at home. And actions like this intensify the attacks of the state on the movement at a time where there's not sufficient organization and planning and strategy to deal with that yet. At the time where the movement is still young, it's very embryonic, and the less immediate attacks from the state that we receive early on as we're building bases, the better. I mean, just think of it in terms of as a whole country. You have your revolution. It would be nicer if you didn't do the things that would make the blockade come on day one as hard as possible. If you can sort of limbo for a little bit, develop your basis, and then the big hits come once you can actually withstand them, that would be ideal, right? Now, realistically, that's probably not going to be the case, but we shouldn't be the ones to put ourselves in a position where we make that the case, where we make them attack us for something that, concretely, I think is not going to really do anything positive for the movement.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think that'd be common sense, but we're dealing with, I'm sure these people committing these acts have some kind of either mental illness, or they just unfortunately have been blocked off from Marxism, because these are lessons, that are taught in Marxist theory, or have been for over 100 years now. The Marxist position on adventurism has always been the one that Carlos just explained. So people need to read. All right, let's move on to the next super chat. It's 10 minutes for each now. Max Maddox, thank you for the $10. My band will stream first album in mid-June, July. I'm a commie and wrote a few working class anthems. I sent a personal message in Patreon with link to the first song. Hope you'll listen. These songs will connect. Awesome, man. That sounds cool. I will definitely check it out. I haven't seen that. Have you guys?
No, I haven't either. That's exciting.
Yes, it is. We need more artists and proletarian musicians, such as Comrade Treasy and Comrade Malumbo and Comrade Addison and a few others that are in the party. So,
yeah, I think we have enough music now to where one of our upcoming videos that I'm gonna keep a secret is gonna use all music produced by members of the party, including the background music.
Speaking of music, by the way, in the party there's a couple engineers, like sound engineers, right? Uh, Fun fact about me: I was a musician for a long time. In the background, you probably see the guitars, basses, all that. But one of the engineers is coming through Cleveland this weekend, so we're gonna hopefully record some stuff while he's here. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, I've had songs just doing nothing forever. Try to do something with them.
Put them
But
up.
I want to talk about real quick. I know we have more to get through, but I think it's really important to focus on this question of violence and why it happens for a minute. Carlos said something that I don't want to move past. And the reason that's true, he is. But the reason that this guy sort of lashed out, it was an act of desperation, right? Because for so long in this country, there's been no left. There's been no organized force that could have sort of given this guy direction and organization and a place to belong. The problem was that he had no collective discipline. He had nothing to check him, nothing to tell him, hey, this is going to do nothing except bring the state down on us, right? And it's just a tragedy that the last generation failed us so utterly. I mean, they had millions of dollars, they had decades, and they let this thing almost die. When we found the red banner, it had been trampled and left on the ground to rot. And we had to pick it up and dust it off and hoist it back up.
And we're going to be producing some content very soon. The secret video I was just talking about, that's going to expand upon exactly what Noah just said, and go into it more concretely. So I'm very, very excited about that. Been working super hard on it pretty much every day, as has Carlos. So thank you, Ewan. Last super chat here, 10 euros. This is always what I love to hear. Hi guys, hope you're well. Hope yous are well. I used to watch a lot of conservative influencers until I came across you guys, and you inspired me to learn about Marx. That's badass, man. That's really awesome. There's not much you could tell me that would make me more excited than that. And I mean, yeah, that's what we try to do, to reach out to everybody, you know, depending on where they're at. I used to watch conservative influencers as well. When I was younger, I was really into the feminist wrecked compilations and stuff. And, you know, you see some of those people who were into that have gone down a really dark path. Cause like, you know, while I think leftists took it overboard with calling every single person a fascist, if you listen to Ben Shapiro's message, you know, he's like racist, and he's laying the foundations for people to actually be racist. He's just too much of a coward to go all the way. He's too much of an opportunist to go all the way. You know, the rap music isn't real music. It's crime-ridden music because black people are making it. You know, these ridiculous takes, or you know, personal choices are what decide your outcome in life. So, you know, there's, and the reason why black people are more, you know, afflicted with poverty or homelessness or crime or whatever else isn't because of their material conditions. It's because of their culture. You know, what's the implication from that? If it's not stemming from material conditions, if it's not stemming from their environment and where they live, from their culture, where's that culture stem from? Why do they have an inferior culture, Ben? Right? So he's making fascist arguments, but he's too much of a little pussy to go all the way and actually do it. And now, yeah, a bunch of his people are like, Ben Shapiro is a pussy. I'm going to go listen to Nick Fuentes. You know, and that's why we're here to be like, no, that's a funnel of brain rot.
You remember his Arabs like to live in open sewage remark?
Right. You start with Ben Shapiro, and next thing you know, you're listening to a homosexual catboy fascist, you know, and it's just not a slide that you want to be on. So we're here to pick people out of that, put them on their feet, and send them on a righteous and just path to actually take down the establishment without falling into degeneracy and hate.
Anyone who hates country and rap is fundamentally anti-American, because those are like the two forms of modern cultural expression and music that have developed organically out of the American way of life. If you hate them, you have this sort of Western Europe facing understanding of what America is. And there's a long split in America between those who want to consider it a genuine break from Europe and a new civilization of its own, and those, particularly in the South, uh, you know, during the last two centuries ago, in the 19th century, those that supported the Confederacy, especially, who see themselves more so as an extension of the traditions and the aristocracy of Europe. And I think there's still some of that in that form of conservatism where all they're looking towards it's like the values and the civilizational project of Europe and can't recognize anything that's organically American because it's fundamentally proletarian in character. It doesn't come out of the bourbons and the aristocracy of Europe. It's working class music. In one case, it's whiter working class music. In another case, it's black working class music. But it's it's the heart and soul of our country's history, just like before that, the blues were and rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean,
And jazz, right, Noah?
mm,
Sorry, go
I
ahead.
would die on the hill of jazz being the postmodernism.
You need to
of music.
debate Corey about it. He wants to
Kyle.
talk to you about it.
Kyle and I almost got in a fist fight about that.
I'm not surprised.
No, I mean, it's just kind of a joke. But look, we've said this before that America is largely a black nation, right? It's been the black working class leading us forward in very key moments of our history, our most revolutionary eras. And it's not a coincidence that black culture becomes American culture over time. I mean, look at music all around the world, all around the world. What dominates? Even Soviet kids in the 80s were dancing to rock and roll songs. We're beginning to listen to hip hop, right? I keep saying right, and Eddie's going to make fun of me for it. But
I didn't even notice this time.
That's one of the great things about America is our culture, and it's a reflection of our class struggle. It always has been. So when these nerds like Ben Shapiro want to sort of dismiss that and dismiss the power that even a Nas song has. I love Nas, by the way. Or even like a kind of a scummy one like Jay-Z. Like, if you want to dismiss that as somehow like a bad negative culture, you need to actually give us reasons rather than just stating it outright. I'm so sick of people just mistaking arguments for statements. You see it all the time and it drives me bananas.
Yeah, but Noah, have you considered? Hold on, let me share this. This is the stupid. Actually, I don't even know if I can share this because it's racist. I'll just explain it. There was some fascist who tweeted, it's like a picture of an axe. I could probably show it. Screw it. Let's do it. It's a picture of a freaking axe. Hold on. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, like a Viking axe.
Yes. German hand axe, circa 1570. It's just a fucking axe. Like an axe that probably wouldn't even be that useful. That's for decoration.
Mhm.
And this guy says, let's see what Africans were making in the 16th century. I bet they didn't know how to make an axe.
In the 16th
83,000
century.
likes. Look how many likes this idiotic nonsense has.
Has this guy never
Probably
heard
living
the
in
Egyptian
America,
book
which
and
is
empires?
explained, was basically built by black people and has, a culture deeply
Right.
influenced by black people. But the Germans made an axe. Wow. These are the arguments that racists believe. This is how stupid you have to be. You have to look at an axe from the 1600s and be like, wow, I can take credit for that axe. I am superior. No, you're retarded.
Jesus Christ. Has he seriously never heard of, I don't know, something called a pharaoh?
Right.
You know what
I
I
was
mean?
like,
Like,
the Egyptians are in Africa. They
right. Like
built the pyramids, bitch.
The Egyptians dominated the entire fucking world. I mean, like, while Germans were living in caves and fucking eating berries they found on the ground.
You know what's interesting? I've done some research and writing into this area. It wasn't until the late 18th century where books on the history of philosophy started placing the origins of philosophy in Greece, and well, they call it Greece, but technically today it's southern Turkey, Miletus. Because before that, all of the standard history of philosophies or histories in general, from Herodotus's his histories text, they all place the origins of philosophy in Africa. In fact, Herodotus says that most of Plato's ideas he came back with after a pilgrimage to Africa. And recent scholarship suggests that ideas that we get from supposedly Empedocles and Plato and even stuff like the theory of forms that's so intimately connected to Plato, you can trace back in some cases almost up to a millennium before they emerged in Greece to Africa and Egypt, specifically the Egyptian civilization. So it's quite literally, along with India, like the cradle of civilization. And it's interesting that those that were many millenniums ahead of time somehow were distorted into being the ones that are backwards and primitive or whatever. It's an interesting cope that the races have to deal with, because and history is not on their side. The facts are not on their side. The same people that tell us facts don't care about your feelings are the ones who don't have facts on their side.
Have you ever heard that quote? I don't think it's real, but I thought it was real for a while, and I wish it was real. It was like Roman Emperor Julius Caesar on the ancient British. They are the most ignorant people I have ever conquered. Marcus Tullius Cicero on the ancient British. They cannot be taught to read and are the ugliest and most stupid race I ever saw. I don't know if that's real, but it's funny. But it's true. Like, that's where civilization was, or reading and writing and science and a lot of these things really, it's a meshing of, consciousness from across the globe. But like a lot of those things originated from not the West, from the Muslim Empire or from Africa. So,
Well, I mean, a lot of the racists, they'll sort of say like, "Oh, well, the West discovered gunpowder, and it was because of that they colonized everyone." Except gunpowder was invented in China, and it went over to the West through trade corridors established by the early Eastern empires. Like, nothing came out of the West except for conquering, and I don't know, man.
There was also cartography in China that mapped out with unprecedented precision, literally the whole world, such that even the claim that America was discovered in 1492 is so absurd, because China had literally mapped the Americas centuries before that. And it wasn't until there was like basically the equivalent of like a China first dynasty where they stopped these, foreign explorations, that all of that fell by the wayside. But this is, there's someone who I think is a little bit problematic in some areas, Enrique Dussel, in his project of transmodernity, but he's done a lot of research as to how modernity itself, like the last people that get modernity is the West. We always attach the idea of modernity to the West or the Renaissance, etc. What he basically shows, I think, quite convincingly in his research is that modernity really is an Afro-Asiatic phenomenon that develops centuries before in Asia and then makes its way over to the West. And there's various thinkers that have traced this development also in terms of intellectual influences. For instance, Ernst Bloch. There's a book right here that I have that's called Avicenna and the Aristotelian Left, where he makes the argument that since Aristotle was lost to the West for many centuries and he really only existed in the Muslim world, it was thinkers like Avicenna and Averroes who were inspirational for people like Giordano Bruno, who is central to really the development of the Renaissance and the opening up of modernity or pre-modernity in the West, such that the modernity, Renaissance, early Enlightenment that we claim to be rooted in the West is actually immediately influenced by thinkers that come from the Islamic world and from Islamic civilizations.
That's wild. I should check that out. I got into a back and forth recently, and it ended up going pretty well for me with some British MMA commentator who was calling the Russians inbred. And I'm like, brother, your monarchs look like this. Your monarchs look like this. You worship this. You took orders from this. You calling anybody inbred but yourself? Dumbass British. Sorry to any Brits in the chat.
Put some
Wow.
beans on my
The
plate.
British calling anyone inbred is wild.
Right.
I love this British hate. I know we have British comrades, but there's a deep Spanish part of me that really appreciates the anti-Anglo.
Look,
Now
any
they're gonna call me
real
LaRouche,
red-blooded
yeah.
American just kind of hates the British in his soul, right? It's just sort of like
that inbreeding is what the West actually invented. That's what they gave the world. That
Someone's
reminds
gotta
me of that
clip that.
Oz clip.
Someone's got to clip the Eddie saying your monarchs look like this and post it online.
Somebody please clip that. That'll be I can be way more racist than you.
That's one of the funniest clips ever. It went like viral in China.
Did it? You want to watch it? It's got
Yeah,
3.6 million views. Holy shit, Oz. We need him to bring this energy back. No, that probably wouldn't be good.
No.
Well, you're just talking like a Mongoloid.
I don't give a fuck. I am a Mongoloid. In my heart, I'm a Mongoloid. That is what I am. We are a word. That is what we are. Yes, we are that. We are 100% that.
That's not something to be proud of.
It is something to be proud of, because the Mongols are the ones who created civilization. And you created nothing but barbarism. You're the fucking barbarians. You destroyed the treasures of mankind. The Mongols only united it. What the fuck do you know about civilization? What the fuck do you know about pride? What the fuck do you have to be proud of? Except looting, genociding, and destroying the cultures and peoples and wealth of this world. What the fuck do you know, Cans Cuck?
When you're chipping out, so
I am chipping out, bitch, because I'm a fucking human being, and you're a little soy boy cuck, little bitch. You don't know who the fuck I am.
no, I see you. I think you're a Mongoloid. That's what you.
I am a Mongoloid. You're right. It is what I am, and I'm proud of being that.
Well, it's an anthropological term. It doesn't actually mean Mongol.
Oh, so what's your fucking point? You ugly, disgusting, fucking ugly, disgusting, fucking barbarian, smelly piece of shit. You want to talk racism? I can be way more racist than you, Angloid. What fucking civilizations did Angloid ever fucking have? It needed the Romans to fuck all of you in your ass to give you any civilization. You never had any of your own. You want to be racist? I could be way more racist. You want to talk shit about Asians? What the fuck do you have on Asia, huh?
I have nothing on it.
You have nothing, because you're a Can's cuck, bitch.
And they call that guy white supremacist.
They call him a white supremacist. That's how stupid it's gotten.
That's how smart the left is.
Jesus.
Funny. Maybe we shouldn't have played that, but it's worth it. Whoever did that edit, I don't know if it was in the party or community, but shout out.
All I could think of was this poor fucking kid did not know what he walked into.
No, but that kid was like a white supremacist, like Angloid imperialist. Like,
He obviously like a complete piece of shit.
had
right?
it covered completely. That's what made it good. And then he's, Haas is like going hard on him, and the kid's like, "Well, you're a Mongoloid." Sounds like such a nerd. That's the thing. Anybody who's like white supremacists are always like the least impressive individuals. It's like, you think you're the master race, buddy? Your mom cooks you Hot Pockets every night. Chill out.
You know what's crazy is that like it's a joke, but it's still technically true. Like Mongol civilization was so far ahead of time. There's this book, I'm looking for the name, that I have it on our Speechify that I've been reading the last few weeks, but It basically describes how the Mongols, oh, it's called the Horde. How the Mongols, as they were expanding, they would create these uh, m- metropolitan city centers, and what they would do is like just bring the brightest people together so that they can mingle and just allow for the acceleration of knowledge in various areas. And that's quite literally the Enlightenment. That's
Yeah.
the Enlightenment that we claim, Europe invented in the 17th, 18th century. No, the Mongols were at it like 5, 6 centuries prior.
That's amazing. I had no
What
idea. I'm gonna have to read that book.
why is it that these racists they talk about being the master race and how everyone's inferior, but then when you actually see them or hear them, they sound exactly like that kid, and they're like this skinny little like pale nerdy kid stuck in his parents' basement, and I don't know. It just
I
reminds
almost
me,
wonder if it's a like way of coping psychologically on some level.
right?
You
Like
know
they
what the
have to put on a
paradox is?
warp.
They all like Nietzsche, but
Yeah.
if there was ever a description of how slave morality on the basis of impotence carries forth the transvaluation of values that undermines strength and capabilities and power in order to promote resentment based values, it's literally these fucking white supremacists. Isn't
Yes.
that crazy?
Uh-huh. It is. I think Morlock's talked about that quite a bit. He's big on the Nietzschean roots in a lot of these white supremies. It's pretty interesting stuff. Um that's where even Carlos found a lot of ground with our friend our friend Daniel Tutt. I'll call him a friend. He doesn't want to attack us. He doesn't want any beef. We're cool with that. We don't hate Daniel, even if he got wrapped up in some craziness. But he had written some interesting stuff on Nietzsche too, actually.
I,
Chino, thank you for the $5. After the Morena party in Mexico wins the judicial election, could we consider that a revolution through reform instead of revolutionary war? Very good question. I'll let these guys take a stab at that. I won't give a definitive answer, but I will tell you that I spoke with a labor organizer in Chicago who was a member of the Mexican Communist Party, and he loves the Morena Party. He's part of the Morena Party, and he said the program of the Morena Party is the same program of the Mexican Communist Party when he was running. So he was very high on them. What are you laughing at? No, it's
Jenny Lynn in the chat.
oh, but I think it. I won't give a definitive answer, but it very well could be, and solidarity with them.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends in Mexico. I've traveled a bunch of times for conferences, and all of them are in Morena. All of them are communists. And what I can get a sense of is that uh, Morena is basically like what we have in Mexico is basically like communism with Mexican characteristics. And what they call Mexican humanism is like their version of what we would call American Marxism. It's just Mexican Marxism. The problem is that you have institutions like the old Communist Party of Mexico where they're extremely dogmatic, sound familiar, and they're unable to realize these new forms that the communist struggle has developed through because it doesn't look like the old forms, and so they condemn it. But the reality is that for being as close as it is to the U.S. and as historically embedded in that sphere as it is, the policies that Morena has been carrying out have been insanely radical. I mean, they're very similar to even some of the policy proposals of the beginning of the Cuban Revolution. Some of the basic industries have been nationalized. There's been tremendous raises in wages and in living standards for it was a blowout win that Scheinbaum had this past year. I don't think we've seen anything like that in modern politics where a candidate is so universally liked by its people, and that's the fruits of the 4T, the fourth transformation, this new stage in the Mexican revolutionary process, which is a process that tends towards sovereignty and a recognition that in order to have real, genuine sovereignty, you need socialism.
Yeah, I think. Look, I hesitate to look at the word revolution dogmatically. Right, Marx and Engels didn't consider it dogmatically when they spoke of revolution. A revolution is a nodal point, like a point of change from the old to the new. how it happens isn't based on, what we want, but instead what is possible within the real world. I mean, Engels himself was saying, in America, like back in the day, we were almost there without having a bloody revolt, right? That if it would have kept going the same way, it would have been a revolution. And, we got the end of the Civil War, the counter revolution, but so it's basically based on the conditions you find yourself in. It's less a revolution through reform and just as it is just a revolution, right? They didn't just pile reforms on. They did a revolution through the means available to them, or are in the midst of one, we could say. I don't know. That's my view of it.
I think you both made really good points there, and I tend to agree. Like, one of the things I've always brought up is when you're reading Capital Volume 1 and Marx is, laser focused on production, he talks about revolutions in technology, that ultimately accumulate quantitatively and allow for the qualitative revolution in the mode of production itself and the relations of production. But there are the invention of computer chips and graphics cards and CPUs. Like, this is a revolution in production. It had very far-reaching social effects and political effects with the emergence of the internet and whatnot and the computer era. So, like Noah said, a revolution is a transformation from the old into the new. So there's, Marx and Lenin never said that, a revolution must go this way. It must have this steps. It must have this amount of violence, right? It's just a transformation from the old to the new. And they suggest at points that it could theoretically happen without the violent insurrection. It just usually becomes necessary when the ruling class tries to destroy you. And Mexico, is facing threats from the imperialist West. So they may have to, use violence in order to defend themselves in the revolution still yet. But, yeah, and some people, like a lot of the ultra left Maoists, they're against any kind of electoral politics at all, and I think that's really misguided. Like, the key is to understand that we're not going to seize power through like a Bernie Sanders election, or that there needs to be work beyond electoral politics. Electoral politics is not the end all be all. That being said, it can be a tool to gain power, to spread a message, to show legitimacy politically by getting people in office. There's a lot of utility to it. And in Mexico, where you have this overwhelming support for a socialist party, you can do even more with it.
And Mexico also has a very strong legacy of socialism. The modern Mexican independence movement with Zapata, Zapata himself said, if what they're doing in Russia is Bolshevism, I am a Bolshevik. So those are the conditions also that the Mexican state is developing out of. And there was a period of many decades where it definitely did collapse back into neoliberalism and folded into being part of the pro-imperialist camp. But when the Cuban Revolution happens, what's the only country in the whole Western Hemisphere that doesn't break relations with Cuba? It's Mexico. So it's also, we're dealing here with a country that also has a tremendously rich revolutionary legacy. It's not a country that, it's not like Colombia, that has been just right-wing, super pro-capitalist and comprador governments back to back to back for 200-something years, and now out of nowhere has a leftist government. No. It was strong bases. That's why it's called the fourth transformation, because there's been 3 revolutionary transformations before that, which is why when I talk to my Mexican comrades, by the way, some of them like Oscar Rojas, Professor Oscar at the UNAM, which is basically like the Harvard of Mexico or of even Central America, he writes for the Institute. He's written for the Institute. He's writing now for Red America, the theoretical journal of the Communist Party. And he's teaching seminars on political economy to the whole Morena party, right? So this is the, a guy that's teaching about political economy to the ruling party in Mexico, but who's writing also for the theoretical journal of the Communist Party in America. This isn't just a progressive left-wing. No, this is a movement that if you talk to the leaders, the person that led COVID, Hugo López-Gatell, his partner was is an editor in the communist magazine out of UNAM, Memoria, a magazine I've published for. So it's communism, like the comrade said in the chat. It's communism in everything but in form, or socialism in everything but in form. So, and one of the interesting homologies that I've broken down with Oscar when I've talked to him. I have one interview in Spanish on air in his channel. Is how we also think about American history as having these three revolutionary moments where we need a fourth American Revolution. They also think about it in that form. For us, it was 1776, 1865 with the Civil War and Reconstruction, and then 1964 with the Civil Rights Revolution. They've also conceptualized similar revolutionary moments and leaps in their country's trajectory, and now they see themselves as embarking on the fourth one, which is a more explicitly socialist one, even if they're not saying socialist.
That's really interesting. I really need to. I've only read a couple things by Oscar Rojas when Carlos gave them to me. I want to look deeper into him, but I want to mention one more thing on this question of reform and revolution. That these dogmatic sort of pan leftists, fake leftists, whatever you want to call them, seem to believe there's like an all or nothing situation. You're either violent or you're electoral. But there's a whole wide array of things you do in a revolutionary situation, right? It's not like we have to choose giving people guns or ballots, right? That's a very childish way to look at it. But that's the way they look at everything. So I don't know. Oh, one more thing. Sorry. Never mind.
Oh, okay. Good question. Thank you for that.
There's a question here they asked earlier. For me, it was Bernie, and for Noah, it was his family because he's a red diaper baby.
One of the few red diaper baby. Well, I guess you could say like red-ish diaper baby, right? Like my parents weren't communist, but they were communist alone.
To this day, hearing the term Scott Walker pisses me off.
How about Johnny Walker? Does that
Johnny Walker
piss you off or piss you on?
Is what?
What about Jimmy Walker?
I need Johnny Walker to forget about Scott Walker.
There you
Scott
go.
Walker is like
no.
Scott Walker's like Seabass from TikTok. Like his mouth is always hanging open. You can like just tell by looking at him that he's a dumb guy. I think the Koch brothers are literally operating him. I'm gonna be president. No, wasn't president. Got 0% because everybody could just sense that he's a moron.
Well,
there's also this question. This is so contrary to the whole Marxist-Leninist tradition, which has said that you have to, if they're like just rich assholes, fuck them, burn in hell. But if they're working class people and they're racist and they hold bigoted views, well, your task is to help them overcome that, and you overcome it through the struggle. The same thing that fetters the struggle, which is racism that divides workers, it is only through struggle that the fetter itself gets removed. And that's been the whole policy of the Communist Party, USA, the old defunct party. Through black and white unite and fight, you deal with the question of racism, because that's how you end up fundamentally having the white workers realize that they've been bamboozled into accepting a very stupid conception of commonality based on skin color with people whom they have nothing in common with, the white bosses, instead of seeing that 99% of what they have in common with the black worker is what actually matters, that the literally superficial skin differences are absolutely meaningless, that they should unite as a class in order to have that which both sectors of the working class demand realized.
Yeah, I also think, there's a few ways to look at this, right? The first is the way Carlos talked about it, more of a personal situation. If you're, your coworker or someone in your family or someone whatever is racist. But there's also the issue of people seeing you meticulously taking apart a racist's arguments.
Yeah.
If they don't see that, they're far more inclined to take the racist seriously and become more racist themselves. If they see you utterly destroy and humiliate someone that's like a racist that won't quit, then they're way more likely to not give that guy the time of day. So there's a balance, and there's never, I don't know, it's not for everyone. If you're not good at it, by all means, Mike, don't do it. But if you can become good at it, why not? You know, get in the information war, fight it.
I've had a lot of success converting anti-Arab or anti-Muslim racists. And this is something that North Star Radio talks about in his video about how me and Hassan Piker brought him to Marxism, Leninism. Not saying he was a racist, but like growing up in the post 9/11 era, like we did, it was almost impossible to avoid having some bigoted views about Muslim people, because everyone around you was telling you that these people are just violent jihadist terrorists, and every mass shooting or whatever is coming from a Muslim extremist. And the media was obsessed with this narrative during the war on terror, which is what I grew up in. I was born in 1997, 4 years before 9/11. In my formative years, when I could actually think, that's what was being pushed on me. And then on top of that, I'm a white guy in a rural small town going to an evangelical Christian church, where obviously they don't think too highly of Muslim people. And just explaining dialectical materialism, the way that North Star Radio explains it is like, well, I just thought there were terrorists over there. But Eddie asked the question, why are they terrorists? Do you think people just wake up one day and choose to become terrorists? Or were there material conditions that cause people to become terrorists? Are there certain groups here that aren't terrorist groups and they're being portrayed as terror groups because it's useful for the Western media? And started asking these questions, and you realize, well, the most extremist idiotic elements politically in these countries are propped up and funded and armed by the US. And a lot of people are joining groups that are opposed to the US violently because we're destroying them. Right? Look how we responded to 9/11 when 3,000 people died. The US killed over 1 million in Iraq. So of course people are taking up arms and fighting back. And of course they're all just being labeled as terrorists with a blanket statement when the media is owned by who it's owned by. And no, that's not a JQ thing. I just mean the capitalists. But if you explain dialect, like we were talking about earlier with the Ben Shapiro argument, you really think that the history of redlining and unions, blackballing black people from being, able to organize alongside white workers, you don't think that led to increased crime rates in the black community? You have to be an idiot to think that systematically pushing people in poverty and actually, feeding them crack and drugs, which is what the CIA did all throughout the last century or the end of the last century, you would have to be an idiot to think that that's not going to lead to increased crime rates. But what these people say is, no, it's just their skin color. It's people's skin color that makes them do it. And, they say culture, but they don't think that culture is created by material conditions. They think that culture stems from skin color of the group. So it's so idiotic. But dialectical materialism, I've always said it, is the ultimate debunk to racist thinking. You can't think like a racist once you understand how people's behaviors and their consciousness is rooted in their material conditions.
Yo, real quick, because I want to hear what Carlos thinks about this, but I just want to say, when I was graduating high school, Eddie was 2 years old.
And I was already more intelligent.
No, like you have a point. Like, it drives me crazy when they say, like, oh, their culture is just bad, or anything is just, when they just end their thinking like that. Like, you have to be an utter simpleton to just let yourself shut your brain up. Like, oh, their culture must just be rotten, period. Like, okay, well, explain this quote unquote rotten culture and how it gets like this. Right? Like, there's a cause for things. It's not just magically. Wizards didn't come along and cast magical spells and, Lord Boldasauron or whatever. Like, no, there's reasons, material reasons, everything happens. I don't know.
I think you guys hit the nail on the head. And it's really like, it's a new form of racist coping in an age where the old form of being explicitly racist is not going to fly anywhere, because instead of having like a very explicit form of racism and saying black people are this, black people are that, they pivot to culture. And they say the culture is this, the culture is that. But then they think about the culture in an essentialist way, in an ahistorical manner, which is part of what you're getting at. They don't see how the culture is a reflection and a sort of reciprocal relationship with the material conditions that it is determined by. So it's a way of just reframing, frankly, racism through terms that we're not yet adjusted to think of as racist.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I never really thought it would be something we'd have to seriously combat. You know, I thought we pretty much lived in the era of wokeism where racism was pretty much dead and we just had to convince people to turn against liberalism. But as things accelerate, we're seeing dividing lines being drawn more like they were during World War II or in the lead up to it, you know, with
Yeah.
extreme right fascists and radical left communists, and everybody in between is just kind of milling around and starting to seem like they're not with the times. You know, Bernie and Hassan Piker and that crew is, you know, seemingly missing the direction that everyone's going, and Hassan's audience is decreasing because people aren't into this woke liberalism anymore. Ben Shapiro's audience is turning on him because people either want class-based politics or they want the actual racism. So things are radicalizing as history progresses, and you know, it's the same ideologies that we had during the Second World War in a lot of ways. But now, you know, open racism, like that tweet I just showed, is getting 80,000 likes. The most idiotic, ignorant kind of like race IQ science bullshit is back, and it once again needs to be combated, which is crazy because of how ignorant it is. But
Yeah,
they dumb down our population a lot.
I think you're making a very similar point than the one that I tried to make in a recent article that I did. I'm going to put it in the chat. But I argue at the end, like we're really coming up into a political conjuncture where people are going to have two alternatives. Either you get with the ACP or you get with the people that are explicitly fascist and racist, because that's where politics is heading right now. Everyone is discontented with the established order, which includes traditional conservatives, traditional neoliberals, and the fake progressive Hassan style, Bernie style left. That route is very quickly declining, and there's new forms of politics that are presenting themselves as dissident that are rising, and it's really the Groypers versus the MAGA communists, or Groypers versus ACP. And really, leftists are going to have to, analyze what group do you prefer. A lot of them, I'm pretty sure, are going to want to do the old Trotskyite, neither Beijing nor Washington, with this dilemma. But it's not going to work. It's interesting because I like you, and I think I was even more optimistic than you about racism having been a thing of the past, because of the analysis of the three revolutions. And I mean, I grew up in Miami where there really wasn't racism, where everyone would use jokingly like slurs against everyone else, and it was like racist discourse and language had gotten to a point where it was mocked, where it became a joke. And in hindsight, as a scholar of Hegelwitz, when something gets to a level of being comedic, that it's lost all of its power. And racism was something to joke about, and part of the joke was how ridiculous racism itself was. That's what I think the liberals never understood. The woke liberals, like, they analyzed the form. Oh, a bad word was said here, or a bad form, stereotypical thing was said here. No, but the real substance of it was racism is being neutered because it has become a joke. Part of why you laugh is because you recognize the stupidity of racism. And there was such a strong attack by the woke liberal left against that formalism, which is the premise for cancel culture and identity politics that we've seen in the last 20 years, that it's bound to produce the opposite effect of what they wanted. instead of removing and cleansing the language from any unwanted words, unwanted for their HR and DEI eyes, instead it actually made people go back to real stupid racism. You know, it removed the joking part of the racism and actually brought back racism. And at a time when the ruling class is in a crisis of legitimacy, if you're seeing this reemerge, give it a platform. Musk and his ilk 100% prefer the Groypers to the MAGA communists and to this resurgent communist movement. So that's, I think, what has happened. You know, the push of wokeism as the form of liberal hegemony has made it so that the gains, the cultural gains that were made in the process of making racism something to mock and to joke about have been undone. And now we're back to a condition that is extremely scary and very similar, as I think you hinted at, Eddie, to Germany before the rise of Nazism. The SPD style leftism, social democracy is done. And the only alternatives that are being presented to people who want a dissident new form of politics are the Groypers, which pure evil, and the communists.
Yeah, I wanna maybe say though that it's not back yet, because the wokeism is actually interpreted by people as legitimately anti-racist. The reaction becomes dissident to be racist, right? And so it becomes part of a dissident fringe that exists on the internet a lot more than it does in real life still. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't a danger increasing every day of this translating into the real world. But, you know, like on my job sites, that kind of shit is still absolutely mocked. And it's still the era where, like, this is why Chappelle's show got popular, right? Because racism is only something to be mocked. And if an actual racist were to begin talking, they would be mocked, right? But online groups find each other and build outward from there, and it translates into the real world. So I don't want to sort of deny that like very, very real increasing danger every day. And if we don't combat it, it is going to become the norm, right? Which brings me to my real point, which is there is the worker and the enemy of the worker. Those are the sides. If you are talking about skin color and racial purity and all this nonsense, all you are doing, if you're working class, all you are doing is making yourself a fucking cuckold. That's it. You think the elites actually share something in common with you because of your skin color? You think they share their spoils and conquering with you? They are ripping you off just as much as your black or Jewish or whoever co-workers or neighbors or whatever it is. You fundamentally share a culture, a country, a material interest with working class people of other skin colors.
Pay
There
up,
is
Bill
the
Gates.
worker and the fucking enemy of the worker, and there ain't shit else.
Pay up, Bill Gates. It's time to pay reparations to the rest of the white race. You've been making too much. You're muted, Carlos.
For me, it's Jeff Bezos because he's got the Cuban descent. Pay up, you know. Where's my paycheck? You know,
where is it? Come on, redistribute it.
But that's why the anti-Semitism is important, because they look at the elites not as white anymore, but they look at them as Jewish, or acting in the interest of world Jewry, which reminds me of that one clip from, I forget if it was Kevin Gates or DJ Khaled, where he's like, Jewry. He was talking about jewelry. Now I can't say it, but you know, it has to be conjoined. That's why who did the KKK hate? The KKK hated not just black people; they hated Jews and Catholics.
They were, and I was just gonna say, I always wondered why the KKK and these other anti-black groups were always anti-Jewish too. But it's what you just said, because it allows them to feign anti-establishment ideology. right? When they say Jews, what they mean is capitalists. They just ignore all the capitalists who aren't Jewish, hyper focus on that, so they can continue to see everything through the lens of race. And they need that to build support.
And what's interesting is that there's something very interesting about the form that racism takes with anti-Semitism, which I don't think it occurs with any other form, because the figure of the Jew for these people is both a conniving elite, but also at the same time like this dirty, lowly figure. So it has the component of being less than and incapable and ontologically inferior. That's similar to all forms of racism. Remember what MLK said: racism is considering someone ontologically inferior, so not based on their environment or culture or anything else. It's their very being is inferior. For the like the anti-Semites, the Jew is ontologically inferior, but at the same time functionally superior. So they're both dominating, but also like this very lowly, incapable, inferior being. And it's intimately connected, you know, as we're talking about, to how you can still preserve the identity of whiteness, which is a bullshit fucking identity that it was constructed by capitalism, has evolved, and what's considered white and what's not considered white has, you know, developed very rapidly in accordance with the needs of capitalism to divide workers. You know, this identity of white only works when you have this connection to the non-white elite, which is Jewish, and then everyone else that's inferior, that's also antagonizing you some way. And then they connect those because they blame like the Jews for like the agenda of bringing immigrants and destroying white culture. they don't see imperialist systems. They just see it as like some sort of Jewish plot. And
how can you be American and just ignore the Fords and the Rockefellers and the Morgans and the Carnegies and the Mellons and the Vanderbilts and the Swenson? I mean, we could literally list the WASPs for like an hour straight, and they just ignore it. They're like, nope, no. These are all just the puppet. Like, it's so dumb. Look,
they're Shabbos goy. That's
right.
what they say. Everyone
I have
who's
to say
not
this.
Jewish who's in power is actually controlled by the Jews somehow.
Right. And the evidence is where, look, just because some moron drew a picture or put together a meme doesn't make it true. Like, all you have to do is look shit up, man. You have the internet. Why do people just believe? It bothers me. And like the reason it bothers me is because they're cuckolding themselves. Like, the actual elites are laughing at them and mocking how easily they're duped. And they're sitting here thinking they're these like brilliant people that have it all figured it out. Like, oh, I'm a noticer. You're a fucking moron.
You want to know what part of the reason, Noah, that people like Dan Bilzerian are now, you know, Dan Bilzerian just had a huge scandal where he was basically found to be faking his entire career, hiring escorts to hang out with him to make him look cool. And he had, you know, his whole career was going downhill. He was, you know, facing potential bankruptcy, I believe. And everyone had found out that he was funded by his dad. He had like a million scandals at once. So what's he do? He starts JQing. And now all of a sudden he has this large audience. And thank you, Sebastian. He's able to make all this money from it. And I gotta believe that's being astroturfed by federal agents. Because it helps Israel make their argument that everybody's anti-Semitic and everyone who hates us actually, you know, hates the Jews. It feeds into everything. And as Noah said, it makes people think that they're anti-establishment while they're cucks to the ruling class, kind of like woke leftism does. And so it's extremely useful for the ruling class. So I think, and when it comes to these big time influencers, they could be getting paid directly, right? Maybe they're not even astroturfed. Maybe they're just getting money under the table from the CIA and getting astroturfed or whatever NGOs. So I think that's a big reason for it.
Did you guys hear about the 4chan thing?
The what?
The 4chan thing. Like, I guess someone hacked 4chan servers, and turned out that like over 80% of the like neo-Nazi posts on poll, the political boards, were all like, they all had Israeli IPs.
Yes, I heard about this.
Completely astroturf. And these morons who can't think fall for.
It's so funny that they buy into it thinking they're fighting the Jewish people and really they're Israeli Mossad assets.
Right, like they think everybody is like a Jewish puppet, but literally this is what they are.
You're the Shabbos
The
goy.
real Jewish plot is that there's a Jewish plot.
Precisely.
That's so true.
The thing about Kanye is interesting. Sebastian just brought it up. It's
Yeah.
fuck, man. He's so culturally influential. Like Kanye has been probably the most culturally influential individual in the last like decade and a half in America. And for him to take that route is scary. I was talking to our comrade Malumbo about it, and he thinks it's possible to re-articulate him away from that, but it's tough, man, because that path
You have
is
to
a hell
meet
of a
him.
drug.
You have to meet him.
He denounced it recently, though. That's good.
Uh,
Do you see
there's
what he?
a there's a
did you see what he
distinction that
tweeted?
Haas, no, I didn't see. I haven't
Oh,
seen any
okay.
of the recent tweets. But there's a distinction that Haas makes between hard and soft conspiracism. And I think that's it's really the question of dogmatism. How dogmatically do you believe in these claims? And I think whether he's able to change or not is dependent on what sort of conspiracism he's rooted in. Is it a soft one that is capable of being turned away? Or is it a hard one that's fixed and central to how he thinks about himself?
Here's what Kanye tweeted recently, just so everybody's up to date. Malumbo may in fact be correct. I told Kanye he needs to embrace dialectical materialism under one of these. But he said, I am done with anti-Semitism. This might be try communism and get rid of the doctor feeding you nitrous. Because if you don't know, he's got a dentist that's got him addicted to nitrous. One of these people who's probably trying to steal all his money and whatnot. So that always, it's weird how Hitler and all these fascists always tend to be linked to hard drugs. But then he said,
Yep.
I love all people. God forgive me for the pain I've caused. I forgive those who have caused me pain. Thank you, God. I simply got a FaceTime for my kids, and I want to save the world again. The earth itself is in God's kingdom. God calls for peace, share love. Sometimes you got to manifest that pussy. So it's good, though. It's good. I like to see him. It's good to see him moving away from this direction. And I mean, the fact that he's like, I got to talk to my kids and now I'm not, in this same Nazi headspace. It's like, yeah, the drug addiction and the personal life stuff is all connected. And it's like, if you're in that trap, you got to get out, man. It's a trap. You're listening to a cat boy named who's manipulating you for money.
I think at the end of the day, the closest thing everyone has, like what connects them to society, is their family, right? Like that's why I do this. Genuinely, the when I'm tired, when I'm thinking about giving up, I think about my son, right, and wanting him to not have to live in a world where he has to fight like we do. And I think with Kanye, maybe it's the same. He sees his kids and he's like, holy shit. Like all this, stuff for the clicks and the money, like it ain't worth it. And I think, look, as the leaders of the American Communist Party, this could be a way to help a man that severely needs help, that fell down a rabbit hole and could be a force for good, like he says he wants to be, if he can try. I don't know. I think that if he would have found us rather than these like Nick Fuentes pansy little fucking bitches, he would have turned out a lot differently, and it's not too late.
We need to reach out to Kanye and get him in the ACP. Can you imagine if Kanye had gone down hopefully if he goes down you know what, I'm actually a Stalinist now. That would be so based. I still listen to him. I put a post on Instagram the other day that I put some old Yeezy in the back, and I had leftists commenting, "How are you gonna put Kanye? The allegations that you're Nazballs is not really fucking
Nas
idiots."
balls, Jesus.
Never beating the allegations, bro. If you're lying if you say you don't still listen to Kanye, or if you used to like him and you stopped because he got addicted to nitrous and went crazy.
College is one of the greatest music albums, period, of all time.
Oh yeah.
I'll say it.
Oh, yeah. I mean I watching old videos of him too, it makes me really sad to see where he's at now, because you see the talent and he's just like this happy, young, ambitious guy, and to look at what
George
this
Bush
sick
doesn't care about
ideology has
black
done to
people.
him. What?
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Yeah, and they forget about all the base stuff that he said. That's one of the greatest moments ever. He's just like doing some infomercial or something. George Bush doesn't care about black people. Chino,
Based.
It's on loop, so it came in hot like 7 times.
Dugan just coming in hot.
Never beating the Duganist allegations. Everyone I encounter who claims to have escaped communism was either one who wanted the freedom to exploit others or simply a racist MFer. Yeah, a lot of the anti-communists in East Europe are straight up fascists. Estonia, the Baltic states, it's really bad. They have like monuments to fascists everywhere. In Poland, it's pretty bad, although the Polish right is now against the war in Ukraine, or moving against it. They're taking on like a more populist bent. Not to say that it's good, it's obviously horrible, but they're adopting more populist and anti-imperialist rhetoric, which, I mean, that's something Hitler did as well, so shouldn't be anything you should
I had a student that was a Polish descent, and he was explicitly a fascist, and I didn't know that. And the first half of the semester, he kept on bringing up politics in class, but all of the geopolitical positions that he was taking were correct. So I was like, holy shit, is this kid a communist? And he came to talk to me after class, and he's like, you know what, Mussolini was pretty based, right? He was doing all these attacks on him. I'm like, oh my God. So I told him, you have to read Black Shirts and Reds.
Yeah.
And he did. And his mind began to change a little bit. I think he started to like communism, but he didn't start to hate fascism. So, but hopefully, you know, that
it's wild.
Mussolini was an imperialist.
The
like
out
horrible.
there, well, yeah, the out there things that the fascists thought of, like Mussolini's idea of the corporate state that they tried to do, right, was literally trying to just invent from thin air new relations of production and just sort of put them on top of the capitalist ones, as if the capitalist ones aren't still there. Like, there's a reason that Gramsci used to like make fun of Mussolini back in the day and like sort of rip his writing to shreds.
He's like the most mockable character. It'd be like if
really
Hitler was like the dumbest character from The Sopranos. Yes, that's a good impression. Even the way he died was hilarious. It's like they hung his ass upside down. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Red Maze, huge.
Red Maze,
$100. Let's go. Thank you so much, comrade. That will go a long way to helping us with our operations here. We've got some new investments that we want to make for the institute to up our production value, and even with the ACP, we want to get like a drone so we can shoot drone footage. So big donations like this are extremely helpful, go a long way. And when it comes to us, you know, it's always good. We all live very humbly and try to transform your money into more class struggle, into more production value. You know, even if you're not someone who can engage in the struggle a lot on your own, if you join the party as a reserve member and give $15, or if you give us super chats or support us on patreon.com/MidwesternMarks, or support our infrared comrades like Haas, that money is being invested in the class struggle. All of us. Haas is the same as us, man. Like, that guy will spend any amount of money out of his own pocket to advance the class struggle. He's on that same same Sigma
refuses to get reimbursed. Refuses. So
yes.
Look, I'm working 12-hour shifts every day. I like, this money ain't going to us. It's going towards the struggle. So we
So,
really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, all I'm saying is we really, really, really appreciate it, and it seriously does help. But shout out to ACP. I so much see so much positive work and communities posted on X. Keep it up, comrades. Thank you so much. We will keep it up. The community organizing, the workplace organizing. I feel like we're hitting a bit of a nodal point here with the public reputation of the ACP. And this is also like a lot of people have been doing a better job of spreading the good work that we've been doing. A lot of our cadre. We're hitting a nodal point where people are starting to realize, okay, these allegations against them are bullshit. These guys are serious. The massive wave of good, real, on-the-ground work that we're doing is starting to overpower the nonsense, lies, and allegations with no substantive evidence.
So the work will always speak for itself and overcome any lies.
ACP.us.
And that's the premise with which we were founded with. What united all of us was a shared commitment to a principle that we decided we can only objectively see through, not in terms of theoretical discussions, but in terms of practical work. If something is working and getting us closer to realizing the principle that we all share in common, we continue it, we deepen it. If something is not working, we readjust. And there's already been a million different things where practical experience has shown us this perhaps might not be working, and we readjust. That revolutionary pragmatism that the Chinese very much had, I think probably more than any other project in our tradition's history, that's something that I think is a guiding spirit for us. And it's also very American because, of course, pragmatism is American pragmatism. That's where the theory develops. And so,
Yeah. Thank you so much, Red Maze, longtime supporter. Thanks for sticking with us, comrade. Try to use your money as wisely as possible. Jason, a resident deadlift master. What's up, Jason? How's it going? Too many Cuban expats in bed with Batista fled to Florida and influenced U.S. propaganda and politics. Yeah, and it's still around. It's changing over time. There are more Carloses these days, and even if they're not explicit communist organizers like Carlos, there's more people who are just starting to question the propaganda and realizing the U.S. isn't this city on a hill that they were promised. And the irony of all ironies is that Fulgencio Batista's granddaughter was homeless in Fort Lauderdale. Right. So she came to America, which was supposedly so much better, the land of human rights. And she ended up living on the streets when she should have been in a retirement home, being cared for and surrounded by family in the final years of life. So that's how dehumanizing our system is. And Cuba is under embargo. Right. The paint is peeling off the walls, but they don't have old people on the streets. Right. These people are housed.
I follow like all the Cuban culture. I still listen to Cuban music. Bebecito and Danny Omen and all that shit. And what's interesting is that the videos that you get from like TikTok and Instagram shorts from these sectors about the US, it's always the same thing. It's impossible to live here. We're working our ass off. We're working 12-hour days, and the money barely reaches to paying the bills. Barely, just barely. There's not even enough money to like go out and party, because if you want to go out and have 5 drinks, if you're in Miami, that's fucking 80, 90, 100 bucks. In Cuba, sure, the buildings were a little bit dilapidated, but you worked a lot less. You were able to sit out and drink rum and smoke a Cuban and play dominoes with your neighbors. You had a sense of community. You didn't have anywhere near the stress you have today. There was no such thing as debt. You had everything basically that you needed to survive guaranteed. And, yes, you had more poverty, but when it comes to the bare bones of human existence, you enjoyed your life a whole lot more than what you do now. And it's not without reason that, the same people that are now singing Patria Vida, the slogans of the opposition, people like Gente de Zona and Randy Malcolm, who is the person that ran La Charanga Banera back in the day. There was an old song from La Charanga Banera which said something along the lines of, yeah, you might be driving nice cars and living in a nice house in Miami, but you're spending all your time working, you're not enjoying anything. And I'm back here in Cuba with the same family, with the same friends, and having the time of my fucking life. And that's what a lot of them are realizing. And now they're posting it online. And that allows other people who are feeling the same thing and are embarrassed to say something because they feel like failures. This is the land of opportunities. If they're not winning, it's because of their moral failings. Now they're able to identify with it. And you're getting this situation where like they still hate communism, they still hate the Cuban government, but that illusion of what America was has been completely popped. And they're in the situation where the Soviet people were in the 90s after the shock therapy. Everything they told me about communism was false, but everything they told me about capitalism was true. Now, the real red pill is when they realized that there was only falsities in the narrative about communism because of the blockade. They'll come to that. But it's a very interesting development that you're getting with these new Cuban expats that are busting their balls and living horrendous, the same lives that most Americans live, lives of desperation, poverty, and indebtedness.
And it brings up a good point on one of the things that really brings them over is showing them that we're patriots, that we genuinely care about the people. Like that's really what this is all about, is the people, right? A patriot doesn't let the elderly people of their country die in the streets. They don't let children go homeless and hungry, right? And this is what capitalism has to offer you. If you're a patriot, you're there to help the people in your country, right?
Absolutely.
And when they see the communists doing that, they go, oh, it looks like maybe I was lied to about these communists. And we could talk till we're blue in the face. Nothing we say will convince them. What we do will convince them.
That reminds me, I got to see the Jose Marti statue in Florida, and it was one of the most well taken care of areas in the region. The landscaping was beautiful. There was no trash. The lawn was mowed. There were nice decorations, and we found out it was actually owned by the Cuban government. So it's like a little piece of communism within capitalism. It was awesome. I also, when I was there, I got a new cop. Little bust of Vladimir Lenin here. I'm pretty pumped about this. Got it from a guy named Vladimir. It was from here's the like it says when it was made and stuff. It's OG, made in the 1960s in either Leningrad or Stalingrad. I can't remember, but
It's Khrushchev era. You have to burn it. Anti-revision.
By the way, join the ACP if you haven't yet, acp.us/join. Even if you don't have the time to commit to being a full-time party member, if you do, you have to join, please. But even if you don't, you could be a reserve member and just give the party a couple bucks a month and really, really help what we're doing. So acp.us/join. I got one more thing I want to talk about today, Carlos, a little video if you're down.
And if you're a student, we now have a very interesting initiative that we're going to be starting with the new semester. So now is the time to join. It's a party doing stuff that no other organization in the U.S. left has done in, maybe a century. So join while you can. It's very easy to join a party when it's got hundreds of thousands or millions of members, when everything is smooth sailing. But the ones with the balls, the ones with courage, are the ones that join early on and help to build the foundations of a party of millions. So put yourself down in the record books as the individual that joined within the first year of the party, that helped to construct it into the party that eventually will grab power in the United States. Don't be one of those that joined at the end, the Tuesday before we grabbed power. Join fucking now and get to work.
Don't be Trotsky.
No, be Camilo Cienfuegos, be Che.
Yeah.
Be these heroes of the revolution who are there from the beginning. Be Stalin. Or at least try your best to be.
As I've gotten older, I've sort of thought a lot about, life and death and the old questions of philosophy and like what you're remembered by. And I feel like just being there on, what was it, July 15th last year, when we officially reconstituted the Communist Party in this country, that's enough for me. That's something that my son can tell his grandkids when he's older. Like, Your great grandfather, he was one of the people that started the party. And I think that's meaningful. And I know maybe it's a little corny, but I'm proud of it. And I want anyone who's like sitting there thinking about how terrible things are getting in this country right now to be proud of themselves too, rather than sitting around playing fucking video games. You know, like get off your ass and help.
Absolutely.
Right? Like
You'll
nobody
feel
can
better when you do.
exactly. No one can make sure you're remembered but you. I don't know if that's important to you. It's important to me. And it's important to me that my son can be proud of me and can like sort of brag to his friends the way I was able to mine, you know?
Yeah.
Beyond like the like my dad can beat up your dad thing. Which my dad could beat up your dad. So
I don't think it's good to like focus on it to the point where you become like individualistic, where you're only worried
Right.
about yourself, but everybody should be worried a little bit about the legacy you're going to leave behind. Like one of the core things, since we're talking about our dads, one of the core things he taught me was like, leave a place better than you found it. And a lot of people, you know, don't have that when it comes to society and the earth. And it's like, we should try to leave this place better than we found it, especially because your descendants are going to inherit it. You know, like every individual exerts a certain amount of influence through their energy and through their life force and through what they choose to do. Every individual exerts at least some influence on the world. So what kind of influence do you want that to be? Do you want it to be an outsized positive influence? Or, you know, do you want it to be negative? You're going to have an influence either way. You can't just drift through unless you kill yourself. You know, like if you're living, you're going to have your energy and your labor is going to have some kind of effect. So make it a positive effect.
This was a
100%.
theme in
Go ahead.
classical Greek epics, where characters, you would literally see like the underworld in the literature itself. You see this in the Odyssey. And the questions people ask when they get down there is, are they still talking about me? And if so, how are they talking about me? You know, ask yourselves those questions while you're alive. Don't wait until your last moments to realize that shit, I've just gone through life. I've let life go through me and I didn't make a strong impact. I didn't take a partisan position that, you know, that placed myself as an agent of history. I just let life go through me. No, like really reflect. Like if you, God forbid, were to go tomorrow, are you satisfied with how much you have contributed to humanity? And there's no more noble cause than that which you take up when you commit your life to fighting for humanity. And that's all communism is. That's really the ultimate telos of the ACP, to fight for humanity. It's the same goal that inspired Marx to do his high school thesis when he left the gymnasium. And he says that the most noble thing an individual could do is dedicate all of his abilities and capabilities to the fight for humanity. Don't be on a deathbed thinking, man, I could have done more. Act now before it's too late.
You could try this. This is something I've been doing lately. I'm not a huge Lex Friedman fan, but I got it from him. And this could be bad too. You don't want to hyperfixate on death, you know, to the point where you're not enjoying life.
Tell that
But
to
I do like
Heidegger.
to what?
Tell that to Heidegger.
But I do like to wake up every day and say like, and just think about the fact that it could be your last day on earth. You know, this could be my very last day. So how do I want to spend my time? You know, and that doesn't always mean just working for 16 hours straight. You know, you want to spend time with family and enjoy it. But, you know, you don't want to just like get so bogged down in the mundane routine that you end up going through life, you know, where life lived you rather than you living life. You want to seize the day every day. And that's something that I do. I wake up and think, okay, if today was my last day, what would I want to get accomplished? What would I want, you know, to be done on my last day? But anyways, before we
sorry. Can I add one more thing to this? Yeah. So the beginning of the internet was really the end of what I think of as an era of unreality, where people sort of lived in fantasy lands. And you can see that, and it created a very big sort of cynicism and jadedness in people, where like, look at what we were talking about at the beginning, right? Where like people are just like social media graffiti people, right? Just posting nonsense. And I think we're walking out of that era because we have to, because it's going to be impossible to live life otherwise. And I think that really shows in the reconstitution of the American Communist Party and the reaction to it. Like, look at all the cynical, like, wreckers and anti-communists acting childish, trying to ruin the efforts of, people who really just want to help. And if that's what you're spending your life doing, trying to make sure people who want to help the world can't help the world, I really just feel sorry for you.
For sure. All right, I got one more thing I wanted to show today before we wrap. Everybody knows I'm a huge fan of Philip DeFranco, the TikTok propagandist. Just kidding. He's a piece of... I can't stand the guy at all. But he recently, I don't even know, I didn't even watch the full video. I just saw people stitching him, people responding to him on TikTok. But you're not going to believe what this idiot said. So I'll show you. I got to share my screen here. Is my screen up?
Yeah, you're good.
Let me try to get this as loud as possible.
Can't hear anything.
Why is that part so quiet?
I can't
Is your
hear
tab
anything at all, brother.
Oh, maybe I must have not shared the sound. One sec. So Philip DeFranco, neoliberal propagandist, the same Philip DeFranco who said that the Nord Stream pipeline was bombed by Russia. They bombed their own pipeline. I said the opposite because it was the opposite. I said it was the U.S. and Ukraine. My video got taken down for misinformation. His video spreading actual misinformation is still up. And if this guy isn't a Fed, then he's an idiot because he could be getting paid by the Feds to spread this nonsense. He is an absolute liar. But listen to what he said.
Dictators can be beaten, and no country on earth has put an end to more dictatorships than America.
Can you turn it up, Eddie?
No. Dictators can be beaten, he said. And no country has brought an end to as many dictatorships as America. This is a grown adult, a man in his 30s, and not just a man in his 30s, but a man who reports on politics and has been following politics his entire adult life. And he is either so stupid or such an opportunist liar that he's out here saying America is spreading democracy around the world, fighting dictators, which any adult, anybody with a working brain, anybody who's not as naive as a toddler should understand at this point that that's not the case. I don't know anyone in the real world who still actually believes that. But this guy is desperately trying to poison the minds of young children on TikTok who are realizing early on that they live in an empire, who are realizing early on that it's not in their interest for billions of dollars to be sent to Israel while people starve here at home. And he's trying to reverse that trend towards anti-imperialism and socialism and keep the younger generations neoliberal. And I just couldn't have any more disgust for this guy. I used to respect him as a journalist. I used to like his show. And to see the neoliberal puppet that he's become, this guy who's out here praising the American empire for overthrowing dictators, I mean, what a clown. What a disgrace. You have no soul, Philip DeFranco. You act like a nice guy, but you are a disgusting imperialist. And, you know, the people who you support have the blood of millions of children and civilians on their hands. So fuck you. How the hell in the year 2025 can you still think this way unless you're literally being paid off by the CIA? Let's talk about some of these evil dictatorships that the U.S. has overthrown, Mr. DeFranco. In 1954, the U.S. portrayed the democratically elected Jacobo Arbenz as an authoritarian dictator because he wanted to take land from the United Fruit Company and give it to Guatemalan peasants. They replaced him with an actual military dictatorship that ruled over the country with an iron fist for the next 2 decades. Arbenz was later found unalive, scalded in a bathtub. How heroic of the United States. In 1953, Iran, the U.S. helped overthrow the democratically elected Mohammad Mossadegh because he didn't want British oil companies jacking all of his country's resources. Again, they replaced him with a much worse dictator, a theocratic monarch known as the Shah. The U.S. also installed the dictator Mobutu Sese Seko in the Congo, for which the term kleptocracy was coined, meaning a government that enriches itself at the expense of the people. In order to install Sese Seko, they had to unalive Patrice Lumumba, an African hero who wanted to develop the country and kick out the Western multinational corporations. In Chile, the U.S. replaced the democratically elected socialist Salvador Allende with the regime of Augusto Pinochet, one of the most notorious dictators of all time who committed horrific atrocities with the backing of the U.S. in Chile's national soccer stadium. Do you want me to go on, Phil? Because I could go on forever. Do you want me to talk about what happened when the U.S. overthrew Sankara or Gaddafi or Evo Morales and replaced them with way worse dictators? The U.S. isn't around the world fighting for democracy. You'd have to be as naive as a 2-year-old to still believe that. They're fighting in their own interests and the interests of Wall Street, of Western banks and multinational corporations. Those are the people who run the world, and any adult should understand this. I mean, between the three of us, we could probably go on listing coups like that for an hour. Go on listing democratically elected leaders or progressive leaders who wanted to develop their countries and kick out the predatory corporations extracting their resources, who were killed by the U.S. and replaced with the most depraved, murderous dictators you could possibly imagine in the name of democracy. That's what's been going on for over 7 decades now. But you as an adult don't know that. You as a journalist don't know that. Pull your head out of your ass. I mean, it's not stupidity. I act like it's stupidity. The guy's 99% sure the guy's a Fed. But like, to sell out like that at such a critical juncture in our nation's history, when so many young people are waking up, and to try to dose them with neoliberalism, like, I don't know how you sleep at night. It's just so gross. And it's hard. I've watched the guy since I was in middle school. So to see what he's become, it makes me sick.
You know, Mate used to say that men who are heroic get even beautiful in terms of their appearance. And I think that men that are evil like this get hideous in terms of their appearance as well, because half of what people are commenting is about how ugly and aged he is. And I mean, look at Victoria Nuland. That's what evil does to someone. You end up actually looking evil.
Look at Anastasia Lupus.
Oh my God.
That is what real evil does to you.
Plastic.
Can you imagine waking up at 4 a.m. and seeing that in front of you? I would literally have a heart attack.
She's just ranting to you about the ZOG, the Zionist
Yeah.
occupied government. You're just like, oh, go away.
Just shoving that book in your face, the Articles of Zion or whatever the fuck.
I think Phil might be on Ozempic or something now. He's got like the Ethan Klein look to him, or like his face is like all sucked out. Maybe he's just on Adderall or something so he can produce more propaganda. But what a gross human being.
It's like that fucking the Dorian Gray book, except instead of doing evil in their portrait being tarnished, their like physical body gets uglier.
Well, that's all I had to say about that. I just wanted a quick clip for YouTube there. I think that'll be good.
I think it's a good place to wrap the night.
Yeah, we've been going for
round
2
it out.
hours 15. That's pretty good.
Well, guys, sign up to for the Midwestern Marks Patreon at midwesternmarks.com/Patreon. It really helps. Join the party, as we mentioned already a few times. If you haven't, you know, even if you don't have a lot of time, you know, join as a reserve and help the party. This party literally has none of the financial resources that all the other organizations in the U.S. have, either because they were given it by very wealthy individuals or because they accumulated it over a century. We're literally starting from scratch. We're putting money from our own pockets to building this party and doing all of the major events that we've done. So if you're committed to the cause of communism, don't just be a passive observer. Help us with time, and if you can't with time, at least with some change, so that we can fund the activities that we're doing for the class struggle. And sign up for the party's journal. It's a great way to fund the party. You can sign up at redamerica.acp.us. In the journal, we're literally featuring the highest level scholars of Marxism from around the world. We have, as I mentioned, for this upcoming issue, we have an article from Oscar Rojas, one of the leading political economists in Mexico, Marxist political economist. We also have an article from one of the leading Marxist economists in the whole Anglophone world, someone who defended the integral character of contradictory value analysis in Marx, and the tendency of the rate of profit to fall, and crisis theory. Wallace was being abandoned by so-called Marxist economics and the School of Monthly Review. Maybe I'll leave you guys to guess who it is, but we have quite literally the leading scholars in the world writing for the journal. So sign up while you still can. And if you're a member of the party, if you're a cadre, you get a copy for free. So that might be an incentive to join the party. But help us
One
in
more
any way.
thing. Oh, sorry, were you done?
Yeah, go.
Sorry, one more thing, guys. We got to cover this. I forgot about this. Andrew Saturn outed his family member as being in the CIA. So this guy who's been stalking us.
That we can't. That's fine.
What?
I just want to say that Red America has been. I mean, since it got released, it has become the number one Marxism journal in the entire country. Just blowing everything else out of the water. I don't think there is anything that can compete, and that's not just being egotistical. That's just being honest.
No, it's the best. It's the best.
Like I have never, nothing in this country competes. I can't think of anything.
No, of course not. Our country's Marxist scholarship is fake. We actually have a Marxist-Leninist journal now. But yes, y'all, check this out.
By the way, I asked ChatGPT yesterday, in a very neutral setting. It wasn't with our usual account. I asked it, what are the leading Marxist websites in all of America? And it put the Institute at number 7. It had stuff like the Marxist Internet Archive that aren't technically like publication websites, and then shit like Jacobin ahead of us. But when I asked what's the leading Marxist-Leninist website and project in America, it said the Midwestern Marx Institute.
Hell yeah.
Undisputable. So
let's go.
You guys are part of something special here.
But yes, Golden Parenti, this actually happened. Big news on Andrew Saturn, who's
let's just wrap here.
What?
Read the private chat, brother.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Everybody go to Talent Site. He's a ACP cadre, longtime cadre. He just posted a very shocking revelation. We're going to be careful and not talk about it because we're dealing with dark forces here. But everyone go boost Talent Site's most recent tweet. And yes, with that being said, thank you everybody for watching. This was a great stream. Thank you, Noah and Carlos, for joining me. Thank you so much to all of our super chatters, patreon.com/MidwesternMarx. We'll see you on the next one.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So come, brother. for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Let no one build walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. Come greet the dawn and stand beside us. We'll live together or we'll die alone. In our world poisoned by exploitation, those who have taken now they must give. And end the vanity of nations. We've but one earth on which to live. So come brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on.